Welcome to Redefining Classroom. Now, before I start the show today, just as a parent, I want to thank all the teachers and academicians who have moved mountains to really make sure that this does not become a lost year in our children's life. It may look easy to convert online teaching, offline teaching into online teaching, but it is also about adaptation and prioritizing. So the next 45 minutes on redefining classrooms, we would be not debating, but discussing and perhaps touching at all the nuances which will be important in a life of a student. Many are calling it as a gap year, but at ET Now we believe 2020 could be a year of change. Since everyone is using the word new normal, I will take a liberty of using that word new normal once again. And with that new normal phrase, let me invite our panelists here, Dr. Zirak Marker, Ms. Meera Isaacs, Ms. Radhika Sinha, and Mr. Cyrus Vakil. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us on this new series of ET Now, Redefining Classroom. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Isaacs. I guess the introduction was the question in itself. Schools have opened in parts of India. As a parent, what should I expect for my child? And as a child, what should they expect from the school now?
I can, of course, only talk about our own school. I think what most schools are doing is trying to keep this as normal as possible. All right, so we are going through this business of timetabling and having a certain amount of discipline to the whole thing, attendance, teaching, testing, all that sort of thing. But of course, it's in the new normal kind of way. And strangely enough, children, I think, are really very, very quick to adapt. They're so adaptable that we've had them all adapting. And actually, I've got one parent over here who says he's so happy about the whole thing. So this is what we have to do. Just take the... Maybe I'm making it sound very easy because it wasn't easy at all for all our teachers to get into this mode. But the fact is that I think all of us have settled into it right now. And that is what it will be, at least for a few months, if I'm not mistaken, that this is what is going to be happening as far as all schools are concerned.
Ms. Sinha, it's easy for some schools to adopt to technology. Some schools may not adopt to technology. Some have the ability, some do not have the willingness. Do you think in this year, education where no discrimination should happen, discrimination automatically will happen?
So to that, I'd say it is a new normal. It is a new challenge for all of us. And as much as we may think, or we may have thought that classroom teaching or the teacher in the classroom, you cannot. You have to have that human touch, and you have to have that. How can technology take over your classrooms? But when the time came and we had to plunge into it, we did. And not only was there the adaptability, but the willingness, because we all looked at it very positively. We kind of said that this is what we have to do, and this is what we want to do, because we have to move with the times. So, I'd like to just, very often the teacher in me keeps coming up, and, I want to draw this, and I like to use quotes which are kind of relevant. So, I'd just like to quote, what Albert Einstein had said, that life is like riding a bicycle. So to keep your balance, you have to keep moving. So our lives are pretty much like that. If we have to keep the balance, if we have to keep moving, there is no question of not adapting to change. So this change and this challenge has come to us. It's for all of us. And I think we've taken it really positively and willingly adapted to whatever was the need of the hour. As Mrs. Isaacs said, yes, lots of challenges, lots of inhibitions in the beginning, but then slowly we just kind of eased our teachers into it. We eased our children into it. And now we are good to go. Now it's full momentum.
Zirak, when we spoke last in the month of April, everybody was at home because of lockdown. Now few are at home and few are going to work, but all children are at home. And it's a challenge. When I look around, I'm working from home, but few of my friends are going to office for compulsive factors, but the children are staying at home. And that is where a parent is trying to struggle, understand, and perhaps even explain the new normal.
Yes. To be honest, I think it's different for different age groups. I think the younger children who are between the ages of 6 and 8 up to even 9 and 10 are actually, the sense of adaptability has been so strong. And I think kids today are far more resilient than us as human beings and as adults. I just feel we have taken time to kind of adjust and accept, and we're going through a lot of uncertainty, but naturally so as adults, there's so much to kind of be, a bit nervous and anxious about, right? Because there is a lot of stress, a lot of people have lost jobs. There is a financial crisis, I think, amongst tons and tons of families and people and individuals that we know. And yet, I feel it's all up to the parents, because I think if parenting is done with more optimism and you add game value, you ensure that you normalize the situation at home as far as possible, keep the balance. Like Ms. Isaacs said, no matter what, structure the day. It should feel to the child like a normal day, even if it's online schooling, the discipline of it, the sleeping at the right time, the eating healthy and having a balanced diet across, infusing, extracurricular, co-curricular activities and just fun into the whole dimension at home will definitely safeguard our kids. I think the population that's getting affected far more, I would say, are the teenagers and the young adults. They are stuck at crossroads. Some were meant to go abroad for their undergrad programs and universities are still stuck here. There's ambiguity as to whether to take up courses online or do online university abroad or then take a year and defer it by a year. So I think all that is creating more, concerns and worries, I think, with the teenage group. And then, of course, there are far more mental health concerns also with that, that bracket of age group that comes with there's so much of online presence, whether it's social media, whether it's addictiveness to gaming that's on a high, or there are kids who are constantly, unfortunately abusing substances. Imagine even at a time like this, there are kids who are procuring marijuana and weed and are smoking up, and that affects their mental health and physical health. And I think every teenager I know is up all night and is sleeping the entire day. So that whole circadian rhythm has been imbalanced as well. So there are positives and negatives in it all. I mean, there's no perfect scenario for all of this, but I think, like I said, it's affecting different age groups in different ways.
Mr. Vakil, the nature of education now, whether it is compulsion or necessity, will change. It is going to be a different experience. Symmetric becomes asymmetric. In terms of the adaptability of the school, Mr. Vakil, one side is we always tell children what they should do, what parents should focus on, but purely in terms of technology, training teachers, do you think we've reached as per the global mark, Mr. Vakil?
That's a good question, Nikunj, and I would begin by agreeing completely with some of the early panelists when they said that, teachers adapted really willingly and really well to a scenario that nobody really anticipated. And there was a learning curve. The first adaptation was actually learning the new tools. Secondly, it was learning that an online class is not a regular physical class with you in front of a camera. You have to adapt your lesson plans. Then it was a question of, well, how do you assess effectively in an online environment where you can't invigilate? So at every stage, new questions have come up and new adaptations have been made. Some of them have actually come from the teachers themselves rather than the school. So it's really a wonderful dynamic learning environment where it's not just the students who are learning fast, but it's actually the teachers who are learning faster. And they've really come a really long way. That having been said, I think, to some extent, it remains true that we are still making a virtue out of a necessity. The necessities being dictated by COVID. It's not like we had prepared for 6 months for this eventuality and were therefore hitting the ground running. So the process is going wonderfully, and the outcomes, as Zirak is saying, can be quite varied depending on the age of the child, and a whole lot of other variables which perhaps we can get into as well, including the learning style of the students. Some students love it, some students hate it, some have learning disabilities. So it's really not one size fits all. Of course, education is never one size fits all. But in this kind of contingency, the haves and the have-nots in different ways, defining the haves and the have-nots, the difference becomes even more stark.
Ms. Isaac, as of now, it looks like in compulsion that schools have decided to adopt to technology. But do you think it will stop at year 1 itself when things will normalize, when vaccine is discovered, or this is going to be a process, motion has been set into work?
Oh yes, I don't think you can ever go back to not having an online presence in the school. I mean, as it is, we all had, for example, smart boards for a part of our normal teaching learning process. It's just now that more and more things have been added. We had experimented with a lot of other stuff, and we've been able to put it easily into place. But there is no way we can go back. In fact, I'm just thinking of myself. I didn't know anything about Zoom for that matter. And now I'm sitting here and Zooming away quite happily. So you see, this is how things change, and we adapt to new situations, and there is no way we will ever go back to the old normal. There's no way. I think we just go forward. We just see what is best, and you adopt that, and use it for the betterment of whatever it is that we have to do. But it's going to be for some time. I do not think that this is going away very fast.
So you're prompting me to ask my next question, which has come on my social media, that please ask all the respected principals that when are they planning to open the school? If yes, what they can share with us right now? To the best of my knowledge, I really don't think it will be before September, October. I really don't think so. And even then, I'm sure I have the concurrence of most principals when we say that we just want to do what is the best. Now, for example, my seniors, yes, I think I would bring them back, but basically for lab work and stuff like that, because that's part of the curriculum. They have to have it, and we haven't been told that there's any cutting over there. So for stuff like that, we will, but I do not think my little ones, I would even think of bringing back until I'm absolutely certain that everything is fine. And I'm sure our parents will not send the children back. We're all a little afraid of what is in store for us, and see the wave after wave, and then you read about the Spanish flu, and you read about what happened. So we are all going to be very, very careful. There's no question about that. Ms. Sinha, first the obvious part. What's your view on school opening or reopening?
So, I don't think we want to put a timeline. As Mrs. Isaac said, it could be September, it could be October. We are saying after Diwali. So these are all speculations. Not any of us at this point in time can put a month or a timeline to this. So I'm looking at it in a very different way. I'm saying the very topic of discussion today is how are we redefining and recreating our classrooms. So I think we need to redefine, recreate our classrooms, which will be, of course, they can never be the same as what is in reality, but have them equally abuzz with student engagement, Let there be active learning, as meaningful as we can make it, and we just go with the flow. And as and when, of course, we are missing. All of us are missing school. We are missing that human touch, that connect. But if this is the way it has to be, well, so be it. And I would also like to add the amount or the number of times that we have connected online is not as, I mean, we in fact on offline, when we were in school, we didn't meet as frequently as we've been meeting over Zoom. So the connect has been with our children, with our parents, between ourselves, small meetings, large meetings, everything has been happening more regularly online. So I would say, apart from that human touch, we have, everything is going well. And so I don't think we can put a timeline to this. We would just be, putting having something to work towards, but this is good. So, and we just have to make it better.
Zirak, how about for a change saying something good for media, because ET now has brought 4 friends together on a technology platform again?
So I'd like to actually even add to what Ms. Sinha said, that when we had to open up our school, our little school that we run called the Aditya Birla Integrated School, which basically, incorporates children who have different learning needs, right? I cannot tell you the anxiety I think we as a team had, right? Because when you're looking at kids who learn differently or who have different needs, you're looking at far smaller student-teacher ratios, you're looking at specialized educational material and special educators and a lot of therapies allied into the program. Well, we've been open since a month, and to be honest, the kids have blown us away again. They're all champions out there. And strangely, I don't know whether this is something we need to look into more deeply, but some of the autistic children or children who fall in the autism spectrum, kids who found difficulty maintaining eye contact, or children who are very, very reticent and introverted and within themselves and had low self-esteem and self-confidence, we are seeing different kids on an online platform. Those same kids who could barely maintain eye contact are looking straight into the phone, they're cracking jokes, or they seemingly are more engaged, because I guess this is like a more unidirectional, one-on-one focused kind of time that they get. I guess in a classroom, you have other distractors perhaps, or noise aspects. So as I said, and I truly believe this in life, there's no real negative and positive. There are positives and negatives in every aspect of life. And like the theme of today is the adaptability. I think the faster we accept and adapt the situation for what it is, I'm sure each of us, especially in education, can make the best of it. And it's up to us. I think we, being the stakeholders, if we incorporate more innovation and technology and we make it more humanistic, even through the virtual platform. And at least for me, I think there's one calling that I really feel strongly about, is incorporating more mental health aspects into this, because any which ways the whole world is talking about, I mean, WHO is actually saying that mental health is going to reach a crisis in some time. And I think if we as stakeholders in education are not prepared for it, then we are asking for trouble. So I think every school needs to step up in making the mental health a priority, opening up more online counseling. And I truly believe in incorporating mental health into the curriculum as a philosophy, moving ahead into these new times.
Ms. Sinha, frankly, when we reflect back, we figure out the difference between necessity and want, the difference between complacency and ask. When you look back and analyze the education system, and now that all of us have had time to think through it, were you able to figure out some fault lines in the traditional education system which you would change now and which now may not be part of future learning? I'm asking you a dangerous question, Ms. Sinha.
No, not dangerous, interesting. So I would say, I am a product, and for the longest time, I have taught at traditional, been in the traditional schooling environment. But I would say that today, the education scenario is very is very alive. Alive, so to say that, the classroom, there is a lot, the focus is not only on academic excellence and training. It's a lot on life skills. It's a lot of, building, self-discipline, building resilience, building responsibility. There are so many life skills which actually are going to hold the children in good stead later. So while the academic, the informational aspect is important, but so is the transformational. And I would say that in today's education scenario, our classrooms are a hub of conversations. There is so much of discussion, there is so much of argument, there is fun, laughter, humor, drama, all that. These are all components of what life is all about. And I always say that school is a world in miniature where we learn our first lessons of life. So today's education scenario definitely is a lot more alive and kind of giving the children the skills, or equipping the children with the skills that they are going to need for life. It's not for an exam. So I would think, yes, it's very different today.
Miss Isaac, just like one shoe does not fit all, this crisis will affect each age group of student differently. What would be your advice to senior students, just when they were rounding up, preparing to take a big leap of faith in their life, moving outside the comfort of the wonderful campus you have, world has thrown in a pandemic? What would you tell to 10th, 11th and 12th grade students, Miss Isaac?
I think we really need to tell our children, in fact, I think all of us do, that you have to, adaptability is one very, very important thing, all right? The second thing is resilience. Things happen. They may not happen exactly as you may want it, but you have to be able to circumvent that situation, rise above it. If we don't teach our children that they have to be strong and that they take everything in a more positive rather than a negative light, otherwise we are going to have children who are just not able to lift themselves out of a morass of despair or darkness or whatever you may want to call it. And I don't think the life is like that. I mean, Radhika was just saying she wishes that she was in ABWA right now and as a young child. But I mean, yeah, I presume so, because it's a very good school. But at the same time, look at the pressures children have these days. I can't remember my mother in the least bothered about, whether I went abroad or not. Now, every parent wants their child to go abroad, and every parent wants to go to Harvard or Stanford. And I mean, it's the kind of aspirations that people have are so different. So, we've got to teach our children that everything may not necessarily go your way, but you need to learn. You need to take a positive stand in whatever it is. And there's so much more in life than just academics. You asked a little while ago, Nikunj, that the old way of learning and the new way of learning. All right, we are all progressing right now. We're all moving on. But yes, definitely, I think while the traditional way of learning had certain areas where it was extremely good, but it is necessary that we begin to think critically, question things, not just accept everything passively. There are just so many more things that are, if you're going to give children a holistic education that we're always talking about, things have to change. And I think this is the time where it is going to change, especially in our country. And I also think that we need to, here we are all sitting, we are all part of a more elite kind of school system, which is very unfair, really, when you look at it generally for our Indian children. Every single child should have access to good education. I mean, it's not right that only a few, merely because of the error of birth, should get it and others don't get it. So these are the kind of things we need to move on towards. And I think if we all put our minds to it and we have a concerted effort, we should be able to do this.
So that's the question, I guess, Ms. Sinha, I want to throw out that do you think the divide which has always existed, and it's a historical divide which has existed, Ms. Sinha, between people who deserve to study and people who want to study, and those who deserve to study don't get a chance to study. Do you think this change in education now is going to be more and more acceptable? I can speak from a personal example. In this pandemic, when I'm working at home, I had the pleasure of going on some of the best online sites and learning simple things like Excel and Microsoft Word, where frankly, I had a bit of a challenge. I hate to admit it, but yes, I had. Listen up.
So I would say, I don't like to, it may be historically, there, the divide between those who deserve and who want and who deserve and who don't get. I don't like this, I don't like the word divide. So I'm going to just look at it in a very different way. There are some of us who do get the opportunity to do things the way, study in the best schools. And so I would just say that it also depends upon, every teacher in the teacher fraternity and every student in the student community. So it's not about going to the best school and the best university and coming out really strong. So if we are able to reach out to, let's say, teacher training, if we are able to reach out to as many teachers as we can, those who are on this side and those who are on that side, taking from your word divide, if you're able to reach out to teachers and kind of get them into this new way of learning, and if they can spread that, then every student is going to be able to receive some amount of the good education, so to say. So it's not about what you deserve. Every child deserves the best. So, and every child should matter in every school. So I would think teacher training would be a good way to be able to reach out to more and more children, because there is a lot of potential out there. And because children don't get the opportunity to come forward is why we miss out on the talent and the potential. But if our teachers reach out to them, so in fact, since the learners cannot come to the learning platform at school, it's imperative that the learning platform goes to the children at school. And so those who, we can reach out to way more people than we can physically in the confines of our schools and classrooms. So I think this is a great opportunity to be able to reach out. And I would say teacher training is the key to it.
I do have a follow-up question for Ms. Sinha, and this is a leaf from where she left, where she said, look, I would love to go back as a student. Now, Ms. Sinha, if that is not possible, and if as a teacher, if you have to write a chapter on the current crisis, how will that chapter start? And how will that chapter end? And which subject would you like that chapter to be written? It should be part of history curriculum, sociology, or some other curriculum.
It has to be English. It can be no other subject for me. And I think I can see Mrs. Isaacs really, kind of aligning with what I'm saying, because we are passionate about what we. So if I had to write a chapter, I don't think I would want to write a chapter on English. English literature. I would want to, there's a very fine line between using the want to do and have to do attitude. So the difference between want to and have to, it's an English thing. It's a very fine line. So I would turn it to positive, learning. This is something which I follow religiously in my life. So if I say I want to do something, there's immediately a surge of energy. And the moment I say I have to do something, there is a drain in my energy. I think this is something which all of us know, and all of us, I'm sure we do abide by. It's one thing to say, to take a very, very recent I may be taking a little longer than what time I have. But if every day I say I have to cook for the family, everybody knows what's going to come on the table. But the moment I say I want to cook for the family, everybody will look forward to that meal. So I think it's just that difference between that. My whole I could write a book on positive thinking. This is just one chapter. So the difference between, the fine line between want to do and have to do attitude is what I would write about.
And I can assure you, I'm making notes as a student. It's always
Okay,
good to learn from teachers, even though it's a virtual class for me personally. Thank you very much for that.
Great.
Zirak's been taking cakes with his family when he was there, but I'm coming back to that. But this question is coming your way, Mr. Vakil, and this one is not coming to the principal of BIS. This is coming to Cyrus Vakil, the father and the parent. What has been your biggest learning, joyful, and nervous moment, Mr. Vakil, in this crisis?
Yeah, as you said, yes, I'm both a principal and a father of a student in the same school. So yeah, so one gets to see it from both perspectives. And one also therefore sees, in a sense that, one is a lot more cautious before one celebrates success, because one sees it from both sides. Every teacher always feels that every class has gone wonderfully and doesn't always ask the child whether or not that is true. But yes, I think broadly it would be a story of ongoing progress. It's a story of ongoing opportunity. You've got to remember that education is typically an extremely conservative profession. Typically, we teach the way we were taught, and that will go on generation after generation. And when school boards come to play, I mean, then we are, 3 generations back, not just one. So the wonderful thing here is that the teaching community has now seen the need for change. They've seen possibilities of doing things differently, and it hasn't had to be top down. Change has happened and is happening bottom up, because they see potential, they see opportunity. And I think that's really wonderful. And I think that is what the student is ultimately going to benefit. The other thing is, and this goes back to the point that being discussed about technology in general, like scale. And when you scale something, things become wider, they become more democratic. So there is now a potential for good practice to be shared much more readily with schools that don't share our privilege. Will it get done? Who will do it? Well, I mean, these are obviously questions, but the potential is definitely there. I think lots of people also have the will to do it now. And I think so in all those ways, I see a lot of hope.
Zirak, once and for all, please, once and for all, let's squash it down to the meaning of right screen time and wrong screen time. 2 ghanta, 3 ghanta, 5 ghanta, 6 ghanta.
Oh God, that's the ever debatable questions and answers. If teenagers hear me, they want to throttle me. But, so actually, I have actually consulted, and I'm not consulted, I spoke with even neurologists, right, who deal with the brain. I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are pediatric ophthalmologists, right? And they say the same thing. It's, there are 2-3 aspects over here. One is we have to understand that I think it's happening to all of us. I don't know if it happens to you all, but when I'm done with 6-8 hours of screen time, I do have a headache. My eyes do feel very, very dry and itchy. I do get knots in my neck or my back. And I think that's with all of us, right? So it's not just anymore about now screen time, it's posture. It's choosing the right place in your home and the kind of chair you use for your back and your seat and the space that you create even in the work from home environment that you are at, the lighting, and just so many aspects of temperature control, fresh air. I mean, the list is endless there, right? Now, what they talk about with children is it's not about 3 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours. Definitely going beyond that is not healthy, because that leads to, they've actually studied when kids under the age of 9 are consistently stimulating themselves audio visually. It leads to more irritability, more frustrations, more mood swings, and they're not happy. And in fact, there's been a surge of behavioral discontrols, more impulsivity, and actual aggression. Now, the reason being is twofold. One is the addictiveness that screen time and screen entertainment has, and one is the sheer, I think, mental fatigue that kids don't realize. Like, to be honest, if my own kids who are 7 and 9 have had a long online day, I have seen them by evening time. They are low, they are frustrated, they are irritable, and they are tired. You can see the physical and mental fatigue that they go through when they've had that online presence. So what we're recommending is what I mentioned, how they're sitting, their postures, the distance from the device that they have, taking frequent breaks, drinking enough of water, standing up and walking around as much as you can. And all the time, the focus should be on posture, whether it's your shoulders being back, your back being balanced properly, and your angle of the head and the neck with the device. But definitely, like I said, online schooling is mandatory. It's intellectually stimulating. You can't run away from it. And it's a must. I think we have to allow all our kids to have access to the right kind of education to stimulate their minds. And I think all schools are doing a brilliant job with online education. I think the tipping point is the social media presence that teenagers are hooked onto, the PUBG and the Fortnites and the excessive gaming. So imagine you're having a full day of online work and courses, and then kids are spending 6 to 8 hours, and I'm not exaggerating, on gaming at night and all night. Now that is clearly unhealthy, and it's a complete no-no. And I just feel parents need to be cognizant of these facts and as to how damaging it can be. And I think parents and homes have to be a bit far more disciplined in putting their foot down and making certain rules in the house. I mean, even small things like don't look at your device and phone when you're having a family meal together. I mean, I just feel these times will never come back again. We should cherish these quality moments we're getting as parents and as fathers and mothers with our kids. And if we're all going to be staring at our phones or looking at devices or in their own bedrooms doing their own gaming, I mean, what's the point of it all? Any which ways, it's a virtual world that we're living in. We're still further losing that humanistic approach and the human touch to it all. So the key word is balance. We can't run away from technology and screen time, but like I said, balance is the key word. And with younger kids who don't know how to strike that balance, we as schools also need to propagate this whole disciplinary aspect and cutting off from screen time. And parents need to take a call on being a bit more tough on this stance.
That's a great point. I'm going to plug in my ET Now bit here once again as a managing editor, that ET Now, if you're watching ET Now on the screen, we don't count that as screen time. So, closing comments, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Isaac. This is not about the year. This is not about the education system. This is more about you. If Meera Isaac in 2020 meets Meera Isaac of 1990, if she has to advise the Meera Isaac of 1990 about the Indian education system and about life, what would you advise her?
About the Indian education system?
Yes. About life and Indian education system. I want, it's an image, Ms. Isaac, that school principals are always strict, but they are also, at the end of the day, doing their duty. They have a human side. So let's talk about that today before we wrap.
All right, the human side. I think the more I deal with our children, the more I realize that there is so much that we can learn from them. What is it that can be done in a more holistic? And I find children very, very smart these days and very capable. And they can show you the path in especially my seniors, I've noticed that. And I would really like all this content heavy stuff that our Indian education is so prone to. I would just wish we could just take that and throw it out the window. There's no point in having that. I think we need to open up our mind, the entire educational mind, and to see how things can be done better. I'm not saying that only the international system is very good, because I do feel that they put a tremendous load on the children, because we've got two people here also, and we are new people over there. We are infants in comparison to them. But I honestly do feel that they expect too much. A 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, I think, needs to be able to have something more in life than just a very, very controlled academic situation. I think it's important, because these days are not going to come back to them. And after having said that, since my last thing, I mean, I don't suppose I'm going to have any more time. What has really, really come to the fore during this time is that how much even parents are appreciating the work of a teacher. Right? They had no idea how absolutely onerous it would be to have a child on their head for so many hours together. That's why even when we had a holiday, they would say, please, 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 can't you just have summer classes? You see, I'm glad of that. You see that give a teacher his or her due. I think that's very important.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of everyone, thank you for your time, and thank you for the entire Indian education system, the teachers, the academicians who've really moved mountains to make it possible that this is not a gap year or a lost year. This is a year of change.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikunj.
Thank you.